Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest special edition video. Another entry here that I promised I was going to do as soon as I went over 10,000 subscribers, and that was talk about and see what my new top 5, in this case, favorite cryptids are. Based on all the new cryptids that I've done since the last go around, I reviewed and looked at all of the cryptids that I've done and then came up with my newest top 5, and I'll share with you those here, and then go over the reasoning of them as well. There were some changes with regards to my last list, so if you wanted to see what those were, check them out when you have a chance. Just type in like favorites or top 5 or top 10. I think I did 10 last time when I went over this other special edition. So if you wanted to compare between the two, you'll see those options as well. This one I wanted to go over, at least start from number 5 all the way to number 1, and let's go ahead. The number 5 new favorite that I have, and there's a common theme, it seems like, between all of the ones that I'm talking about here. Number 5 has to do with the entity known as the tulpa. The tulpa was a very fascinating cryptid. This was the one that's basically like an imaginary friend. This is the one that I talked about where people reported that if they concentrate hard enough, like if they put their mind to it. There's no specific time frame. It could be a short time, it could be a long time, but if they concentrated hard enough and they focused in their mind on creating something, like something out of a favorite friend, like what they would feel their new imaginary friend is, given enough time, then all of a sudden this imaginary friend comes to life. But what made it so fascinating was that it only comes to life in their mind. Like they literally hear this new imaginary friend in their mind. It's like a real thing. Like it's a real person. It's a real entity. Whatever it is that they created, it talks to them. It asks them questions. It goes over, I guess, what their day was. Almost, again, like if they were strictly right in front of them, like a real person. But instead, this tulpa is just 100% in that person's mind. I still can't wrap around like if they actually hear those voices, or if they like if they're like just imagining them. I compared it to the idea, like if you were to hear let's say a police siren going off in your head, imagine it now. You can hear it, you can actually hear it going off in your head, but obviously it's not happening. So is that the same thing when it comes to these tulpas? I also question the idea that, some of this seems a little, I guess, dangerous, only because there were reports that I talked about where sometimes these things that were created, these tulpas, they may started off as being nice and cordial, but because they're their own entities, what happens afterward is some of them become bad. Like just like, let's say, your average roommate. You could have a good roommate, you could have a bad roommate, you could have a good roommate turn bad, and vice versa. And so the same thing happens apparently with these tulpas, and so that's why there's that risk. The idea is once you create one, it's very hard to get rid of them afterward. And I gave an example too of one student. He's mentioning that he practiced it for like hours on end. I think it was for several months. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, one day after he finished taking an exam of sorts, he walked out of the exam from his school, and then he heard a voice all of a sudden, like in his head, tell him, "So how did the exam go?" And that was it. That was his tulpa. Like it finally came to life. So again, very fascinating stuff. Check out my video of all the ones, and I'm just my favorites, so that way you get more information on them too. So that's number 5. Number 4 is the Holden folk, which was another way of saying the hidden people. This was this race of people that apparently are still there to this day. They're in certain parts of the world. The idea is they're there, they're living, they're with the same locations that us as humans are, but for all intents and purposes, they're in another, I guess you could call it, dimension of some sort. The idea is you could be looking, let's say, at a rock, and this rock is just an ordinary rock to you and I. It's a giant boulder. But to those that can apparently see this Holden folk, they see these little tiny people, almost like like dwarf-sized, living within the rock, and that's their home. They just happen to live in a different dimension of sorts, and while to us the rock is completely filled on the inside, it's completely solid. In their dimension, they've created like rooms, like they've created living spaces. This is an actual place. And what I found so fascinating about talking about that video was the people that believe in these things, especially during those certain parts of the world, they treat the locations that apparently, I don't know how they, I guess, pick them or know that they're there, but certain places, certain boulders, certain areas of grass, certain locations in the fields, wherever they may be, people say, for whatever reason, that's where the Holden folk live. And so they treat that place as like sacred stuff. Like they either cordon them off, they don't develop on them. They want to make sure that the Holden folk that are there, or that they presume that are there, are not to be disturbed at all. And it's a good luck of sorts, because if you do something to their locations without their permissions, then that's when it becomes a major problem afterward. I included pictures too that showcase like a location. The one that stood out was a street, and while the street was developed, like for most of the street, there was a certain section on there where like the street wrapped around a large set of boulders, and the reason for it was because for whatever reason the town associated those boulders with the Holden folk. Like they thought this is an official location of these hidden people, and so we are not to disturb that location. And so that's why it didn't get any development on the street side with those boulders. Crazy stuff, very fascinating stuff to talk about. Absolutely loved it. So that's number 4. Now, number 3, again, following the theme of things that people don't really see, but that they absolutely believe that they're there, are the machine elves. This was the video where I talked about these entities that only came about when people took a very specific drug. I can't remember what the name of the drug was, but the idea was you wouldn't see them when under your normal state. But if you took this drug, like almost like a psychedelic drug, people have reported almost scarily the similarities between those people, that they all of a sudden, like, I don't know, they get merged into some other realm, some other dimension. The environment around them changes. It becomes very machine-like, like lots of intricate moving parts left and right. And then that's when they meet these creatures, these machine elves. And these machine elves, what was so fascinating was that the machine elves vividly interacted with the people that met them. Like they would talk or try to talk to them, and if I recall correctly, they somehow, even with, I guess, like languages being so different from one another, they would understand what they're saying, or they would at least be able to decipher what was meant. And so the idea was that the machine elves would welcome these people that would, I guess, come over during these psychedelic trips, and then show them their world, show them themselves, interact with them. Very, very fascinating stuff. These machine elves, again, only prevalent when you took this drug. I don't recall any reports about anything as far as other people seeing them without them. But again, I posted a little hesitation, like as far as seeing these things, because it reminded me. I mean, isn't this basically what people that are schizophrenic, I guess, say? Like when they start hearing things, seeing things, as far as these I guess little people, whatever they are, in terms of the machine elves. So it's with hesitation that I say that people actively go into this as well, much like the Topa. But again, such a great topic to talk about. There was, again, so many examples of people all reporting the same thing, and that's what makes it like it has to be true. The idea that if so many people across this world are all stating the same thing, and they don't know one another from each other, they don't even know their names, they never met, they would have no way of having all the same similarities, but there they are stating the very same thing. And then there were drawings that I posted of what people reported that these machine elves look like. Fascinating stuff. So good. So that's number 3. Number 2 is a returning entity, one of my favorites. I'll give you a little tease. He's actually one of the ones that I drew recently for my drawings, and that is the Genius Loki. Those of you that know my channel know I absolutely love the Genius Loki. It's still one of my all-stars, still one of my favorites. It's the idea, again, of something that's there, but it's not. You don't see it, you don't hear it, you don't sense it, you don't smell it, you can't touch it, and yet there it is. And again, the reason why I love this entity is because it's pretty much, if it's true, it's pretty much in that Session 9 movie, whatever that thing was that was making the main character within that movie slowly but surely go insane. It was the Genius Loki. The Genius Loki, again, is so fascinating to me because here's an entity that for whatever reason is trapped within its lands, almost like a ball and chain stamped to the ground. It cannot leave its enclosed area. So the only thing it can do is, for all eternity, it seems like, it can just wander around within its proximity. Maybe it tries to escape, and of course it's bound to its earth. That's why I picture it as being like something like a struggling entity of some sort, something frustrated, because it is so forever tied to this piece of land. It knows that there's like an entire world, if not universe, out there, especially from what it can see, but it cannot escape where it's at. And so that's why when anyone comes around its location, and with its frustrations, that's why I picture it like in Session 9, almost like toying with people, making sure that it's going to have a good time with anyone that comes across this locale. And that was what makes it so scary too, because you have no idea like where Genius Loki would be. It could be that your apartments were built on a location that hundreds of years ago had a Genius Loki stamped in its locale, and yet there it is now in your location, and you would have no idea. That's what makes it so interesting to me. And again, one of my favorite entities, one of my favorite cryptids that I've talked about in the past. So that's number 2. And then finally, number 1, still number 1 from before, and that is Bloop, the very first video that I talked about, the thing, the entity that basically got me started within everything here. Still my favorite. I absolutely love the idea of Bloop, the entity, whatever this thing is, something so big that it should make, let's say, a blue whale look tiny compared to it, almost like a mosquito next to it, because whatever it was that caused that sound to be captured thousands of miles away, the idea being that the sound was so large that it could be heard thousands of miles away, this thing would have to be so big in order to have caused it. It's unimaginable, like something that would make anything largest size considered on Earth dwarfed by this thing. So the idea that something like that is roaming out there, who knows, maybe it's miles long altogether, who knows if it's still out there. If not, it's yet to be seen, but it just makes it so fascinating to me, because the idea that if there is something out there that's small island sized or even larger, and we have no idea about it, all of a sudden it could turn up, let's say on the East Coast, right there by New York, and then almost straight like Cloverfield, just roam out, like just make everything else look so small. That's what makes the world of cryptids so wonderful to me, because it's so otherworldly. It's the idea that there's something so massive. We think stuff is already big, like when it comes to a blue whale, but if something like this is truly out there, we have no idea like how big things can be on this earth, especially underwater, because of the notion called deep sea gigantism, that we would all just marvel at the idea of seeing something like that's miles and miles long. So that's why, again, Bloop remains my favorite entity, my favorite creature. There's also the idea as well of is that fear that people have of being in deep sea water, and then having something so gigantic, so enormous coming up to them from the bottom. That's what makes it also favorite too, because there's a movie begging to be made with this. So crazy stuff. Still my favorite, and also unchanged from my previous top 5. So there you go, everybody. I'd be interested to hear what your top favorites are, see if they match with mine as well. Check out my list of videos, just go through my playlist and then see what I've talked about and see if you see any that are in the top 5 of yours as well. What's similar, what's different. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.